What is going on, Guardians, and welcome back to another Planet Destiny weapon review. This is True Vanguard coming at you with a review of the Haakon's Hatchet from Iron Banner. Now, it could be Haakon's, it could be Haakon's. I've heard it pronounced probably half a dozen different ways. I'm pretty sure Bungie was just like, let's throw an extra A in here just to mess with people. So first and foremost, let me tell you that if you are interested in getting your hands on this weapon, I would highly recommend that you pick up the vendor version from Lord Saladface this week, because it is essentially a god roll. It's got counterbalance, perfect balance, and a rangefinder with the red dot OAS sight on it, which is pretty good for long range engagements, especially when it fires like a laser beam. Now, that being said, my TLDR version of this review would have to be, hey, this gun is mediocre. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably put it at a flat 5 in terms of its overall effectiveness in PvP. Now, the fact of the matter is that this gun does have a nice effective range, but the rate of fire isn't fantastic, the impact isn't fantastic either, so essentially it's going to take a while to put people down relative to things like the Doctrine of Passing or a Last Word. And sure, if you play to the strengths of this weapon, you're probably going to be engaging people at medium to long range. That's really where this gun shines, but even at that range, there are other weapons that are more effective at that range and have a shorter time to kill overall, and are a little bit more reliable in terms of their lethality. Now, you can definitely play well with this AR, and I certainly have. I've had some pretty massive games with it, but they are generally the exception to the rule, and oftentimes when I'm going up against stiff competition, I find myself switching primaries to something that's a little bit more reliable, and keeping enemies at arm's length, where this gun really shines, is easier said than done. And when you're playing against skilled players, they close gaps quickly and bring out shotguns and fusion rifles, things that can really mess you up in close quarters, even a Doctrine of Passing or a Last Word. And if you've got the Haakon's Hatchet out, you're probably SOL. So let's say that you've fallen in love with the Haakon's Hatchet and you want to use it and mess people up at medium to long range with an AR. Great! You're the type of person that remembers that video games are for fun. You're not just using the best thing out there just to be the best. So first and foremost, I would recommend that you couple it with a special weapon that's going to mess people up in short range. So when people close those gaps on you, you have something to fall back on other than your primary to help you deal with the rushers. And there are lots of them. I'm seeing lots of Juggernaut Titans these days, even Defender Titans with shotguns. I'm seeing lots of Blink Shotgun returning. I'm seeing Universal Remote. I'm seeing more fusion rifles. So you're going to need to be able to protect yourself in close quarters. Now, another downside to the Hatchet is that, unfortunately, even at the range that it's most effective at, there's still a lot of cover on the map, and I find myself often getting lots and lots of assists and not being able to finish off my kills just because by the time I put enough bullets in them to get them nearly dead, they've already made their way to cover. And that assessment is pretty accurately reflected in the scoreboards of these matches that I've played. Look at this, 12 assists using the Haakon's Hatchet, and that is not abnormal at all. In fact, most of the matches where I've used Haakon's Hatchet in my primary slot, I've ended up with 10 plus assists in the match. Not that that's a bad thing to get assists. Obviously that means good points for your team, because if you're priming someone and someone else is finishing them off, that's extra points that you get for the kill. Now, I know I've spent a considerable amount of time expressing the overwhelming mediocrity of this AR, but there are some high points as well. Obviously, if you get the vendor version, this gun is incredibly stable. It's actually pretty easy to use, it's easy to hold on target, and you're going to find yourself pretty easily maintaining your control over this weapon, and it bounces a little bit at long range, and you'll notice that, but it's honestly pretty easy to counteract. So just make sure that if you're going to use this weapon, you are coupling it with a special weapon that's good at close quarters. Make sure you're reading your radar and keeping your distance. Stick to the longer sight lines. Try and think about ways that you can take down people who are hard scoping, people who set up shop in a specific area and try to snipe. It's a decent counter sniping primary weapon, but it does have its weaknesses, and you just have to make sure that you keep those in mind. Sometimes, even if you're trying to keep your distance, people are going to close the gaps on you, and obviously a lot of the maps in Destiny cater towards close quarters engagements, and there's lots of mobility options that your enemies have to close those gaps on you. Things like Twilight Garrison, which was sold, so you're going to see more of those. Things like Shade Step, things like Blink, and you're going to need to be able to deal with that. Now, I found personally that this gun coupled well with Plan C, because with Plan C, it's effective at point blank range, but it's also effective at that short medium range where fusion rifles really shine as well. And this gun, the Haakon's Hatchet, at close medium range really isn't that great. It needs to be at mid or long range. So the fusion rifle, like a Plan C, really helps to make up for that gap, that vulnerable spot in terms of range when you have this weapon equipped. I'd also recommend using something like the Vacancy or even the Thiessen. There's a couple of great rolls for those. The vendor version of the Vacancy is excellent. The Gunsmith has given some pretty solid god rolls of the Thiessen as well, and they tend to shine at that mid-range as well. So I would recommend pairing those things with the Haakon's Hatchet. You can't go wrong there. My prediction is that you're going to see a few of these Haakon's Hatchets this week and next week, but after that the use of them is going to start to taper off as people tend to fall back into the other weapons that are a little bit more reliable and consistent in terms of their lethality. Hopefully this was helpful, guys. Let us know your roll that you got on your Haakon's Hatchet and how you feel about it, and we'll catch you in the Crucible.